Welcome to the State of Our Union, the podcast where real love meets real life. I am your host, Karen Williams, author, speaker, and wife of over 30 years. This is the space for honest conversations around marriage, commitment, conflict, healing, and learning how to choose each other daily. And it's even during the times when life gets heavy. Because love isn't just about the vows we take. It's about the work we're willing to do together. Each week, we'll have conversations that inspire, challenge, and remind you that even through loss, disappointment, and change, your relationship can grow stronger. So wherever you're listening from, whether you're driving, cooking, working out, or lying in bed wondering if you're alone in this, just know you're not alone. So take a breath, lean in, and let's talk about the real state of our union. Hello again. This is another episode of the State of Our Union and the Fight to Keep It. And if you're new here, I am Karen Williams, your host. I am, what am I? So many things. Relationship coach, author, speaker. And I, of course, jumped into podcasting about 6 months ago, and just feel like, hey, we got so much to talk about when it comes to marriage. For those of you, again, that's new here, this is season two. And so, season two, we are really focusing on the wife. We call it her side of the union. And today, my awesome guest is Dr. Eboni Bell. Dr. Eboni Bell is not just a friend of mine, but she is an amazing educator, and I am going to, just swing it over to her and let her introduce herself to you. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you and congratulations on podcast and all that you've been doing, your books, all the
Yeah,
things. Congratulations.
thank you so much.
Yes, Karen, I would say yes, you are a dear friend of mine, and I'm so excited to be here today to simply share the wisdom that I've learned. I've been married for about 16 years as of September. And, I grew up in a unique family situation, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that kind of helped shape who I was as a wife. And now I'm happily living into, who I believe I should be as a wife.
Yeah.
And so today I'm just really looking forward to kind of sharing some of my experience, things that I've learned. And like you said, I'm an educator, so I kind of love coming from a teaching aspect, but also just really down to earth. I just love people. I also love families. I do plan to go into couples therapy in the next few years. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Love traveling.
Yes. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So good to have you here. And so we are going to dive right in. So in the beginning when we did our pre with it, whatever you want to call it, application process.
Mhm.
One of the things you shared was one of the major challenges that your family uniquely face is the move, 6 moves. Wow. And you're not even a military family. Share
Right.
a little bit, share a little bit about that and why the moves, how that affected your family and
Yeah.
some of the changes around that.
Yeah. So as we all know, transitions in general are one of the hardest parts of life as an individual and certainly as a married couple. And then when you add children into the mix, any kind of transition can bring a lot of stress into your life that you have to kind of navigate.
Hmm.
So, long story short, my life is very, very similar to a military family. My husband is a United Methodist pastor, and at this point, every 5 or 6 years, he has been called and placed into a new position. And
Hmm.
so, it's been okay for me as an educator because I can easily find a job anywhere, which is great.
Right.
But it has definitely been, I would say, the hardest part of our marriage is each of the transitions and gathering all the things up, deciding what you want to keep in every season. Every season, you can't take everything with you. Um, right? Literally, figuratively, you just can't. It's almost like you're having a new start multiple times. So
Right.
depending on how you look at it, it could be actually a great thing. But it's also definitely has been very challenging in terms of getting everyone settled, making sure that I'm kind of the foundation in terms of my sons and,
Mm-hmm.
kind of making sure that they transition to new schools, we get in the right neighborhoods so that we have a good school.
Right.
And then also just making sure that they are comfortable with their surroundings socially as well, right?
Yeah.
And so navigating it as a wife and being supportive to my husband has been one thing. And then navigating it as a mom and being supportive to my sons has been another. Now,
Right.
I'll finish the answer to this question by saying this. All of that is great, but I'm still a woman and I'm
Yeah.
still a woman who has a purpose. And
Yes.
so the reason why it has been both, I would say, challenging, stressful, at times frustrating, but also extremely rewarding is because
Mm-hmm.
each of the moves and each of the transitions has definitely built me into who I am today. It
Yes.
has allowed me to come into new circles. It has allowed me to meet new people. I love traveling, so that's one of the, you get to learn a new environment. Where is
Yeah.
your favorite lunch spot going to be? Where is your new nail shop going to be? It has helped me become a more organized person
Mm-hmm.
and definitely a committed wife. You have to be committed to say, you know what? You have a new job, regardless of who I, see
Yeah.
myself as, I am going to commit to be in this with you. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Because that definitely is a commitment. And I, even have that same conversation with some military wives, and they'll tell you they thought they were ready for it. They thought they
Mm,
were to pack up and move and do all the things. And not just the move itself, but I think there's a unexpected loss or sense of loss
yeah.
when they have to pack up and move away from family of origin. We always
Mm,
think, oh, we're ready to leave. I'm not going to go by my mama's house every week. Well, you kind of miss mom's house every
yeah.
week, once you don't have access to it anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
And I love the word you use there. And it's a simple word, committed.
Yeah.
You're committed to not just who your husband is becoming, not just who your kids are becoming, but who Ebony is becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in each of the moves, you have to kind of make that decision. How is that going to feed me as well as my entire family? So
Yes.
that's
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, and this is important for wives, is developing an individual fulfilling life within your marriage. Tell me how you have done that, or tell the audience how you have done that, or continue to do that,
Yeah.
and how can you get started and still bring your husband along the journey with you?
Yeah. So I first want to tackle that question by saying that for most of my life, I was a people pleaser. It
Hmm.
was just part of my nature, part of just how I functioned as the oldest daughter in the
Hmm.
family of five. I took on that role unknowingly of just wanting to please everyone around me. I
Hmm.
think that I carried that into my marriage, maybe like the first 5 or 6 years. I
Yeah.
was definitely the wife who was extremely submissive. Not saying that I'm not now, but I mean, to the point where, my own desires were not like paramount for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so overcoming that was one that was a huge key, right? Like overcoming the fact that my needs do matter. God is calling me to submit, just as He's calling my husband to submit to me. We submit to one another. However, when your submission um, begins to overlap your purpose, your destiny, your own personal desires, your soul, right, needs to be cared for, right? Your soul is real. We are not just spirit; we are also soul, which means that we
Absolutely.
have wants and we have desires. And when you put those on the back burner for too long, lots of things can develop. Resentment can develop. You can be resenting yourself. You can resent your spouse. You can resent, you can be angry at God. There's so much that happens when you begin to um, actually realize that you're doing it. That's when it really starts taking a turn. When you acknowledge, like, oh my goodness, for the past 5 or 6 years, I haven't been thinking about my own individual needs or my own wants to
Yeah.
the degree that I should,
Right. Right.
right? So I wanted to start there because that was the beginning of the journey for me to begin to come back into who Ebony is, back
Hmm.
into who I am as a woman, not just as a wife. And so now, 16 years in, I am confident that I can fully live out, my purpose, my destiny,
Yes.
my desire to travel, my dreams and my goals, my business ventures, all of those things are what keep me whole. They keep my soul in a place where I can actually serve other people.
Yes.
First, definitely, serve God, then serve my husband, then serve my children,
Mm-hmm.
and then serve the rest of the world, right? Like the world has always been my playground. Like I always dreamed of that. And though in the future, actually, I have, some aspirations to live abroad. Right
Yes.
now, I'm focused on how I can still be fulfilled with where I am, being a
Mm.
mom, being a wife, and definitely looking forward to the future. So it is so important to have your own goals, to have your own dreams, to have your own ideas around what God has called you to do and to not get lost in
Yes.
someone else's life.
Yes. So, man, that is, woo, that is so rich, so very rich, because so many of us get married and, we step into marriage with this huge expectation of
Hmm.
this is how my marriage is going to look. The white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, the dog, the station wagon, all those things. And halfway through we have to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, who am I? What am I doing
That
here?
part.
What's my purpose? And the thing is, because I constantly ran into couples who've been married, the 20 plus years, because
Yeah.
it hits around that point because
Mm,
the kids leave home and then
yes. Yep.
nothing. Okay, who is this person sitting on the couch with me? Who is this individual?
Yeah.
And so you get to a point where you say, okay, what am I supposed? What am I? What's my purpose? What should I be doing? And
Uh-huh.
have finally have that conversation with ourselves. And so what
Yes.
you're saying is so on point. But also speaking of expectations, roles, and all of the things, we said many women enter marriage with unspoken expectations.
Hmm.
So talk a little bit about where your unspoken expectations were, some maybe for partnership, emotional
Mm.
connection, communication, support. What did your unspoken expectation look like? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I want to first say that, I grew up in my home without my father, and that helped shape who I became as a teenager, as a college student, as a woman,
Mhm.
as a woman, and certainly as a wife. Because of that, I do think that in the beginning, of course, based on all the movies we watch, the TV shows, the sitcoms, we see these images of, these lovey-dovey situations and these conversations that happen between the husband and the wife. And we kind of
Yeah.
began to be shaped by what we see in the media as well as our personal upbringings.
Yes.
Those two things combined definitely, I think, created an image of what marriage could or should be,
Yeah.
as opposed to us writing our own story.
Yeah.
My husband grew up in a household with mom and dad,
Hmm.
right? And they were very present. So we had to bring those two backgrounds together and to figure out, we literally said the words one day, like, we have to write our own story.
Hmm.
We need to paint our own canvas. We need to figure out what this looks like for me. So in the beginning, my expectations may have been for him really to fulfill what I never had with my dad. Like I
Hmm.
needed that, the covering, the protection, the provision. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very independent woman. I work, I got a job. So I'm not talking about like I needed a man to come and provide for me. I honestly never, I don't think I ever really expected that because I'd never had that. So it
Right.
wasn't an expectation for him to like replace what my father did. Like, no.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have
Right.
that. And even to this day, I love, making my own money. So I just want to
Hmm.
throw that in there. Because people have different expectations. I talk to lots of single women today
Yeah.
who they do want a man to come in and do, they want them to pay their bills, and like that's a thing. And I mean, for me, it's always been partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's economy, of course, which this is a whole different topic, but in
Yeah.
today's economy,
Right.
you really need two salaries, and
Right.
honestly, you need some side businesses as well,
Mm-hmm.
in order to live the particular life that you want to live, depending on what that looks like for you, right?
Right.
But so my expectations have changed over the years as I've grown as a wife
Mm-hmm.
and realized, Ebony, just because this didn't happen in your family, you never saw it, doesn't mean you can't rewrite that story. I say
Right.
all the time, I am so grateful that my husband is present for my sons.
Yes.
Like, even outside of like, take marriage out the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That has done my heart well.
Yes.
Because that's, for me, that's like God fulfilling something in me that I didn't necessarily have, but
Mm-hmm.
my sons will not have the void that I had.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
Yeah.
again, to answer the question, again, I think it's definitely media. Nowadays, it's social media as well. And it's also our upbringing and
Yes.
how we saw what marriage could look like, or we never saw what it looked like. So then you got to start with a whole blank canvas, like I said.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it, to even add to that, Rob and I have, some similar stories. Yeah, this year will be our 34th wedding anniversary. And
Amazing.
yeah, it's, you think, yes, that's awesome. And of course we do prize that. At the same time, we had no examples. We didn't know
Mm,
what it should look like. Neither one of us, and you talk about blank canvas, we didn't even have the canvas. We didn't,
mm.
we didn't have the paintbrushes to
Yeah.
even start. And so, I talk on another episode about the importance of having, solid marriage mentors that you can, whether they know they're mentors to you or not, but
Right.
having that healthy picture that you can, either, glean from, get ideas from, or nope, we won't do that. You know what I mean? Um, so having that really good, healthy examples of what marriage should look like is
Hmm.
also beneficial. But then
Yes.
you get to a point, like you said, you have to come to a point, you and your husband sat down and say, hey, we have to paint our own picture. So at some point we all have to get to that pivotal moment where we say, okay, we don't have anything to pull from, let's create our own, you
Hmm.
know decide what our relationship is going to look like. And that's so important. um
Yes.
so it kind of walk us through a little bit, and share as much as you want or as little as you want. How would you advise, say, that young person that just got married, they're in year 2 or year 3, they're thinking, oh my God, this nothing is happening the way I had it planned in my head. What
Hmm.
do I do? How do they arrive at that pivotal moment like you guys did to decide, okay, we're going to paint our own picture? What are some of the tools or some of the ideas that you can share with them?
Yeah. So I think that one thing that I can remember happening pretty early in our marriage was around communication to other people about our marriage.
Mm,
Um, so that in itself, happening multiple times, kind of caused us to say, like, okay, what boundaries do we want to set? What parameters do we want to set around our marriage? How we deal with what happens in our marriage? Who are our safe people?
mm-hmm.
So that would be maybe the first thing I would say to someone. Who are your safe people that if you needed to talk to
Yeah.
someone about what's going on in your house, who is that person?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure your husband knows who that is. Like, that's important as well. Um, so again, I think we got there because we realized, like I said before, I didn't grow up with a marriage in front of me that I could necessarily lean on in terms of an image.
Mm-hmm.
He did, but he
You
also didn't want to carbon copy his parents' marriage. There were
right.
certain things he, may have wanted to do differently, and certain things that, I wanted us to do, and we had to bring that together. And we
Mm-hmm.
certainly did marriage counseling in the midst of, I would say maybe the first 5 years. That is also number two, marriage
Mm-hmm.
counseling, individual therapy as well. Because when you do that, what happens is you get to present the situation to someone who is not in the situation, and they get to see it from a fresh lens. And the hope is that you begin to work through some of the things that you dealt with in your past so that
Yes.
you don't continue to perpetuate them in, in your present or in your
Ye
future for your marriage.
right.
And so again, having safe people, having boundaries,
Mhm.
uh, doing individual and couples therapy. I think regardless of whether your marriage is going well or not, that
Yes.
maintenance is just really, really, really good. And then
Yes.
again, put it on paper, write the vision.
Right.
We
Yes.
we sit down every year, we do vision boards. We've done that for since we got married. Um, you can even do a digital one now. You don't even need the scissors and the glue stick. You can do a digital one. Say, hey, babe, I started the vision board. Can you add on to this for me? Let's
Yes.
add on to this vision board.
Yes.
Another thing we do is every single year we set goals individually and as a couple. A lot of the times that's centered around finances. What
Mhm.
financial goals do we want to hit this year? How are we going to do that? What action steps do we put, behind that? So
Mhm.
that was a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But those are some things that I would certainly recommend for people who, even if you're not married yet, is really thinking through that vision of what you want your marriage to look like,
Absolutely.
spiritually, physically, um,
Mhm.
emotionally. How often do you want to sit down and have conversations? Can we carve out a time each day or each week to talk about that?
Yeah.
We one time we went through a phase where we had financial meetings,
Mhm.
because we didn't want to talk about money all day. We wanted to just make sure that we had a specific time to do it. So you
Yeah.
got to put those systems and processes in place in your marriage, just like you do at your job, just like you
Yeah.
do in your business, because
Absolutely.
those things help. They help create a parameter. They help create an atmosphere where you can operate inside of, and everyone understands what the culture of it is.
Yes.
Right? Your marriage needs a culture. Your marriage culture not going to be the same as everybody else's. It just isn't. You are
Exactly.
two different people. That's a whole different conversation.
Different
But
tips.
everybody's marriage has a culture. And what
Correct.
works for you doesn't necessarily work for someone else.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So true. And then even as you're sharing all of those ideas and tools and advice, I'm still thinking in the back of my head, and they move 6 times in the midst of all of
And
that.
in the midst of it, yeah.
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 Midst of that. So,
Mhm.
you know, for those of you listening, there's so much here you can take. Hey, remember who your safe people are. Establish your safe people if you don't already have those safe people.
Mhm.
Counseling and therapy and coaching and all of those educational things is necessary. They are so necessary to move
Yep.
on, and develop those healthy relationships. And that's my favorite, and it's always create that vision, write that vision down.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you cannot have a healthy marriage relationship without a vision because you'll be
Yes.
all over the place. Talk about, like James said, you'll be tossed to and fro because for if nothing else, you and I are busy looking at all these different people and how they're doing marriage, whether it's the people or social media. Um, not trying to, point anybody out, but
Yeah.
my my son and I were talking about some reality stars last night and how um they made their money, but their content have damaged so many young people, because of what what they're poured into them. And yes, we all had a decision to decide whether or not we're going to consume that content, but the
Yeah.
fact is they did. And so that has
True.
become, such an
Mm.
unhealthy crowd. So, my hope is that you and I are creating platforms where, we can kind of change that narrative and give people some new information that they can work with.
Yeah.
Um, so, do you think that, do you think we always recognize when our expectations are unrealistic or unspoken or
Mm-mm. No,
crazy?
because our norm is our norm. Like our worldview is our worldview. Our past experiences are true to who we are,
Right.
and that perception is our reality.
Mhm.
And so I think one of the most healthy things that my husband and I have learned to do, um, is to constantly be self-aware. Like, where is his expectation coming from? And am I expecting him to meet a need that really is met when I travel?
Mm,
Right?
yes.
Am
Yes.
I expecting him to meet a need that's really met when my business is flourishing?
Wow. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Um, and this is a big one for me and many people, I'm sure. Am I expecting him to meet a social need when really I need to go out with my girls? I need to go to dinner with them. I need to go do a yoga class. I need to simply get on a group chat, a phone call,
Yeah.
because I'm expecting something from my husband that he may not have the capacity to give me. However, because I'm with him all the time and because he's the person I come home to,
Right.
I have to kind of put his needs to the side and say, oh, no, I need you present right now. When
Mhm.
really that man needs to go somewhere and be refreshed, be renewed, sit on
Yes.
the porch or whatever it is that he does.
Yes.
And then we can come back together later.
Yes.
And in the meantime, guess what? That's what I was talking about with the individual life. I'm
Mhm.
going in the room and I'm a binge watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Or you know what? Let me get on Marco Polo and send so and so a video and update her. Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
And
sometimes the needs that we're fulfilling, we're trying to get them to fulfill. It's impossible, and we just need to have a more fulfilled life on our own. If that makes sense.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Because God created us to be more than a wife.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
there's so much that is poured on the inside of us to create and put out into this world. And that was the whole idea behind my whole new becoming her coaching experience for women, because
Mm.
I said there's way too many women that are finding themselves in the place where they're unfulfilled. There's so much resentment within their marriage,
Yeah.
and they're resenting their husband who they're simply not capable or have the capacity to show
Yes.
up in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
listen, the fun that we had at our retreat, my husband could never,
See?
he can't pour that into me.
Oh, I
He
love it. Yeah.
that yeah, it's just not possible. He can't give me that. And as much desire,
It's
him and
so
I,
good.
we could probably talk about anything. We can talk about shoes, politics, whatever. But there's still a part of my soul that desire to be around women who are,
Hmm.
you know, even if we don't have the same vision, we just sitting there hearing your successes just
Yeah.
feeds me. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
so fulfilling.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that. And I think sometimes there's a fear of having my own desires, because some people look at that as, well, wait a minute now, that means you're stepping outside of your marriage in a certain way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
your
yeah.
husband got to approve of that, or,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's a good point. And I think I know I certainly run a risk sometimes with my individuality,
Hmm.
but I also know my limits and I also trust myself.
Yeah.
And because I trust myself and I know my limits, I could communicate that to my husband.
Mhm,
However, that took a lot of work. That is not an overnight process.
mhm.
That took a lot of work, a lot of communication, and a lot of me being real about who I am to my husband. I'm
Yeah,
just not the person that can just be up under you all day. It's not me.
yeah.
I also know that it's not him. So, however, we love being around each other.
Yes.
We love when we get to sit down on the couch and watch CNN and talk about how crazy the world is, or
Yeah,
watch some crazy spy movie that takes place in another country.
yeah,
We love to talk about, all things God and religion, but we don't do it all the time. We understand it's almost 16 years, so we're probably getting ready to come up on that 20-year, that you're talking about. Like, oh, wait a minute. Our first son leaves in 4 years, so that's just crazy to think about. So yeah,
wow.
once we hit 20, our first son will be leaving, and we'll
Yeah,
have one son left. And so in the house, and so yeah, it'll be another transition. But yeah, it takes a lot of work, y'all. Like
it does.
marriage is not nothing about it is easy.
It
It's
is.
forever changing. You're forever changing, but
Mm,
it is so beautiful when you can learn to accept each other for who you are,
yes.
accept each other for who you are,
Mhm.
accept each other for who you are.
Yes, yes,
Period.
Yes. Yeah.
period. And I
Yes.
know I'm not perfect. I will tell my husband every day,
Yeah.
listen, I might have got this messed up. I might have messed that up. But
Mm,
here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Or
mhm.
here is what I need to work on within myself. I am so good at that. And I think I don't usually say I'm good at stuff, but I will say I am good at that.
Mhm.
I'm good at
Mhm.
that because I have worked on it. I have done the work to know who Ebony is, what Ebony needs, when she needs to get away,
Yes. Yep.
and when she needs to be treated like a little girl.
Yes.
Like, babe, I
Yep.
just need to lay on you right now. Like, can I just, and I
Yeah.
just go right there and I just lay down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed that self-awareness in you. Even when, we'll plan stuff together, and
Hmm.
uh, I remember even being at the retreat, this past spring. And, I remember there was a moment when you say, all right, guys, you go do what you gotta do, because I know I need to go get some sleep. If I don't get some sleep, and,
Hmm.
remember just
Yeah.
realizing that, shoot, she said what she needed out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so important, because I think a lot of us, there's a certain level of fear, maybe, I don't know if that's
Mm.
the right word, but I think there's a level of fear where we don't want to
Mm.
voice what we need.
It is
And
fair. Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
maybe I'll lose that friend, or maybe, in this case of marriage, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make my husband mad if I put out what I want. And so we drop these hints, and I can't stand hints. Lord knows I can't
Oh, yes.
use a
Yes.
word.
That is
But
a whole conversation
because
because they don't have the energy all the time. Who does?
nobody.
Like, we too old for this.
Right.
I'm like, babe, if I don't do this or that, I'm gonna lose it. Like,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I'm on the edge of burnout. I know I'm on the edge of this or the edge of that. And it's important to be able to say those things so that your partner knows how to navigate where you are. And then
Yeah.
they can open up and say, but let me just tell you, I am also exhausted. I'm mentally,
Mhm,
emotionally exhausted. And
mhm.
so if you have two people who are mentally, emotionally exhausted, not to mention physically exhausted,
That part.
that is
Mhm.
a storm like waiting to happen. But if
Exactly.
you know it, you can give each other space
Exactly.
and you can
Exactly.
come back together, and give each other peace. But what I
Mhm.
don't want to bring to you is a storm. I would
Yeah.
rather bring peace. So let me go be refreshed and let me come back and then I'll be at peace. Hopefully you'll be at peace. We'll
Yeah.
both be emotionally regulated and we can move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how important it is to have that emotional regulation before going into those hard conversations, or before
Mm,
even voicing some of the things they want. Because if we're not
yeah.
careful, we will speak from a position of resentment, or
Yes,
a position of annoyance. And as you and I both know, the conversation will take on a whole nother tone.
it will.
No, he's not hearing what you're saying, because all he sees is disrespect, or all he sees
Yeah,
is
the tone that you came off in. Yeah.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly,
Yeah, again, and it's learning your partner. It is learning the cues and the little signs and the little signals like, oh, I can tell he needs a minute. Like he
exactly,
didn't say it, but
exactly,
he needs a minute.
exactly. But yeah, that's really good. Um, No, and I know a lot of times, we talk about some of the unspoken, unrealistic expectations. A lot of that sometimes is rooted, like you said, in experiences, our upbringing, family of
Mhm.
origin, all of those things.
Yeah.
Now, how do we get to that point of self-awareness where we say, you know what, I don't want to. I don't want my marriage to look like my mom's or my dad's, or, my uncles or whoever,
Mm.
whatever examples we had or lack thereof. How do we get to that point? Because I remember making the decision that I don't, I mean, because Rob and I were both married before. Now,
Uh-huh.
with that being said, we didn't want the marriages we had.
Mm.
But we didn't know the marriage we needed or
Wanted.
wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, it took us some time.
Mm.
Of
Interesting.
yeah, what was important for us was, we were in church, so we had the Word of God to be our foundation on what our marriage was going to look like. at the same
Right.
time. We needed lived examples of what that would.
Yeah.
So, we gleaned from that. And over time, we started writing our own story, painting our own picture. So I know a lot of people say, even those who are not believers, where are they going to learn? What do we do next?
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, what would be some of their, first, how do you get to that point of self-awareness to say, hey, we got to figure this out. And then if God is not your source, how are you doing that?
Yeah, exactly. Those are great questions. The first thing that comes to my mind around the self-awareness is simply being able to name the emotion. Being able to name your emotions is almost like a confession.
Yeah.
It is a realization that I am human. I may be hurting. However, I may be excited. I may be hopeful. And guess what? I may be all three of those things at the same
Yeah.
exact time.
Yeah.
Because I may be excited about what's happening in my business, but I am disgusted about what happened in my family. I
Yeah.
am happy about what's going on with my children, but I
Mhm.
am not so hopeful about how my marriage is going right now.
Yeah.
We can be all those things at the same time, but simply being able to name the emotions for ourselves
Mhm.
and then to communicate those to our spouses is paramount.
Yes.
It's paramount. We can easily do it with our kids. Like we can go to our kids and be like, you know what? I am so disappointed that after 3 times I told you to clean this room,
Yeah.
every day when you wake up and don't go out of the house with your room looking crazy and da 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 da
Yeah.
da. We can do that with our kids because we don't have that same level of fear.
Mhm.
We're not worried about our kids rejecting us. For
Yeah.
many of us, it's the fear of rejection. It's
Yes.
the fear of if I open up and say, babe, this is not going well.
Mhm.
I'm fed up with this. Like I'm reaching my point of burnout with this situation. What can we do? We
Yeah.
are afraid of what the answer might be. So we
Yes.
cannot be afraid of what happens after we name the emotion, after we
Mhm.
communicate the emotion, and then that's when the work actually starts. Because
Ye
again, once you open up, you're opening the door for your spouse to also say some things.
Yes.
You're right, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Can I also say that we need to accept non-closure?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Accepting non-closure means we may go through 30 minutes of a conversation around a topic. At
Mhm.
the end of the 30 minutes, no miracle dropped out of heaven. It just
Nope.
didn't. And we're still in the same place we were 30 minutes ago. But what you just did though
Yeah.
was really you took the power from the enemy. You
Yes.
you to go in a spiritual, you took the power from the enemy.
Mhm.
You no longer have disclosed what you are feeling.
Yeah.
You're not holding that on your own. The
Yeah.
beautiful thing about marriage, regardless of how tough it may be, is that you get to share it with somebody else.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think we don't talk about that enough.
Thought about enough.
We get to share every struggle. We get to share every victory. We
Yeah.
get to share all of these challenging moments with our children, with one
Mhm.
day grandchildren. There will always be something. But
Yeah.
guess what? You are not alone.
Yeah.
You are not alone.
Yeah.
And
That
I
is.
think that is beautiful and it's
Yeah.
something that we need to talk about more often.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's way too much emphasis being placed on all the struggles of marriage, the hardship of marriage. So and I mean, yeah, those things are there and they're real because they can wreck a marriage, but that's the good part. That's the part that I always say, um, I can't even imagine doing life without you. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, you are my person.
Like
You know
even if we work together, I'm still gonna call you. Like I'm gonna call you
that
because you're my
that
friend.
yes.
You're my friend.
Yes. I
Yeah.
told someone recently, I said, even if Rob and I weren't married, I can still see him and I being friends,
Right.
because we have so many things in common and that, that might
Mm,
kind of minimize all of it. So, in a little bit, but it really does, like, dude, we can talk about anything, the struggle, like you said, the victories, the losses, the
the
regroup,
losses. Yep.
you know, all of those things. And so
Mm,
yeah, being able to name your emotions and
Mhm.
communicate that to your spouse, and that fear of rejection. I want to kind of hang
Yeah.
up for a second because I remember that being the somewhat of a catalyst for me on how I
Mm.
communicated, and it really robbed me of a lot in my like the first 3 or 4 years of my marriage because I was
Mm.
so afraid of my husband rejected me if I say something. So what I would
Yes.
do, here's the crazy thing, I would just shut down.
Mm.
I would just shut down. I just didn't say anything. Didn't have the words, didn't have the capacity, didn't have the mental capacity to even formulate how or the language for that matter, to formulate the
Mm.
things that I want to say to him. And
Wow.
that led to so much distress. And he got to a point where
Mm.
he said, listen, we're going to have to figure this out. We're going to have to figure this out. And it got to a point where I remember him saying that, we're not going to get past this, whatever this is, because,
Mm.
of course, yeah, the fear of rejection was at the core of it, but it affected our communication. And as you know,
In general, right.
there's no marriage without communication.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
that is definitely, that was so big for us as well. Oh my gosh, that is good. That is good. And so here's what I always want to lead into before we wrap up here was, what were some of the conversations that you wish you had the opportunity to have before getting married? We all have that one thing that
Mm.
I wish I knew this before going into marriage.
I think it would be around wealth planning. I think that financial struggles in a marriage are um statistically one of the top reasons why couples don't make it. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about the amount of money that
Yeah.
someone has. I am speaking about money management. I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking about prioritizing. I'm speaking about what's urgent and what's not urgent.
Mm-hmm.
All things surrounding how we are good stewards over money and
Yes.
how we save money, how we learn to invest. If there was a conversation I wish someone had with both of us, it would be how to navigate wealth and finances, especially when you're planning to have children,
Mm-hmm.
when you're planning to retire at a certain age,
Yes.
building wealth, not just, spending every dollar you get.
Right,
But
right.
let me give you a practical example of something that we recently learned. And of course, my mother sold life insurance for over 30 years. Let me just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
grew up surrounded by the word insurance.
Yeah.
She had her own agency and all that. She
Mm-hmm.
always talked kind of around us about life insurance. So not
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't know it was important. However, this year we recently got our sons
Mm-hmm.
2 universal life insurance policies so that when they become a certain age, they can pull cash from that
Mhm,
investment and use it for a down payment on a house,
mhm, mhm.
to start a business. I wish I had done that the day they were born, because if
Yeah,
I had done that, most likely they would have thousands and thousands of dollars already accumulated in the whole life insurance policy. It's called a UIL. And I
mhm.
don't sell life insurance, but for those who are interested, please do, reach out. I know several amazing life insurance agents.
Yeah, yeah,
However, I only brought that real life example up because that in itself could have created wealth for my sons
yeah,
earlier. And we're
yeah,
working on it now, which is great.
yeah,
But what if we had done it when they were born? So
yeah.
it's like little stuff like that
Mhm, mhm.
around finances that I wish someone had said, nope, don't move into that house that's going to cost you $2,500 a month. Move into this 2, 3 bedroom apartment that's going to cost you 1,700 until
Yes,
you saved up 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever it is, so that you're comfortable when you move.
yes,
Um, yeah.
yes.
So that's number one for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's huge. But
Mm-hmm.
as you're even as you're talking about the wealth building,
Mm-hmm.
it reminded me of all the different businesses that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, you have all these different businesses going on. You're still a wife. You still, and not just any wife, y'all. She's the wife of a pastor. So what we're talking about, a pastor's wife, is not just, you're not just a wife. You're the first lady of a whole church.
Yes.
You're not just setting examples for your kids. You're setting an example for a whole slew of families.
Yeah.
So I want you to share a little bit about how you navigate all of that. Again, wife, Ebony the wife,
Mhm,
Ebony the
mhm,
first
mhm,
lady, Ebony the business owner, Ebony the mom, all of
mhm. Yeah. So I think, one thing that I realized very early on in marriage is that every season calls for something different.
that. Mm-hmm,
Um, there have been times in my marriage when the kids were really small where I was able to work part-time
mm-hmm.
and focus the other part of my time, specifically on the kids.
Yeah,
Or then if I was home, I would, if the babies sleep or, you know, minding their own business, I pull out my laptop and I start writing a chapter of my book.
yeah.
I just have never been a person that wastes time. Like I'm better at resting now. Like I'm really good at knowing when to sit down and
Mm-hmm.
kind of take time for myself. But I'm not good at like not making my time mean something.
Yes. Well,
Like I think again, time, it's a very valuable or the most valuable currency that we have. And
yeah.
so I always remember what is it that I need to focus on in this season,
Yeah.
and I do have multiple business ventures, but they're all under one LLC. And so some parts of that business get more of my attention in certain seasons than another. I
Yeah.
know, for example, during holiday season, more of my products, like my dolls and things like that, are going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
However, maybe in the summertime, I'm focused on something totally different.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think that all of us can benefit from seeking God and asking for direction, speaking to your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
being in touch with yourself and saying, what is my plan for this season? I
Yeah.
usually take the year in quarters, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're hitting quarter 2. We're in June. Can you believe that?
You know.
In a minute, we're gonna head into the third quarter of the year.
Oh, yeah.
So my question over the summer is going to be, what am I doing in this next quarter?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that does include myself in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how much more do I need to be in the gym, working out, eating better. Husband, are we planning a vacation for our 16th anniversary?
Mm-hmm.
Kids, one's going into high school, one's going into middle school. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, even just saying that out loud, that's a big transition year for my kids.
Correct.
I'm going to need to be as present as I possibly can for them.
Yes.
So knowing what to focus on in which season and then when to put things on the back burner I just think it's really important. And
Yeah.
that is that is the only way, by the grace of God, that I'm able to manage being right now I work full time and I also run my business. But you won't catch Ebony nowhere gossiping. You're not gonna catch her nowhere talking about somebody. Like I don't have idle time to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just really focus all of my time on what I believe God is calling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, also while taking care of myself and resting
Yeah.
and being more social, which I do through my sorority. So like that has been a blessing
Mm-hmm.
because let me hear this. Every time we move, I find a new group of sisters. It
Yeah.
does automatically. So
Yeah.
I think that that's one of God's blessings in
Mm-hmm.
my life.
Yeah.
It's one of God's blessings in my life and I do not take it for granted. So yeah, so being able to manage it for me is really just prioritizing what is important in that season and then focusing on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is so awesome. So, 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 so awesome. So for right now, what in this season, what area of your business are you really focusing on that
Mhm.
anything can help, you know, the women that are listening, whether it's a new book, you're like you talk about dolls. So, you share whatever area of your business that you think that they would benefit from in this season right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And my answer to that is that always work behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
People see me pop out with a retreat or pop out with, oh my God, a new doll or pop out with a new workbook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they don't know that I spent the last 12 months working on that.
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
like that has been in my heart this whole, the whole time. I've been ruminating. I've been using AI technology to organize it. I've been opening up my Google Doc and typing in it. Like I've been talking to friends. I've been surveying people. I have been, so be prepared for what you're praying for. And honestly, the only way to be prepared for what you're praying for is to work towards it. See, many people think that preparing for what you pray for is you're sitting somewhere, you're only ruminating, this dream is sitting in your heart. But it is when you take the steps forward that God gives you the next step.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I wrote the first workbooks and I learned this from that. And that gave me the seed for the next one.
Yes.
And then before you know it, you got a whole collection. And people look at it like, oh, you have the collection, but like, you don't understand what I went through to get this. Like you don't understand that like I'm not wasting any time. I cherish every moment of my life. And so I think that our lives have to be directed towards a purpose. And honestly, those kinds of things keep depression away from you, right? Like they keep sadness and hopelessness away. When you're working on projects, you're working on planning something, you're writing something, you're working on your business, you are fueling your faith. You are constantly giving yourself, you're exercising your faith muscles when you do that. And
Yes.
so that is all part of the preparation that prepares you for the next thing. So if nothing else, again, work behind the scenes when nobody else is looking. You are doing the research, the work, contacting vendors. You're doing all the things that that people won't see when your product hits.
Yes.
They only see the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to highlight something you just said. Your life should always be directed to purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that's what's missing. As wives, we think that's our only purpose.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
when our life is not directed towards purpose, that's when there's room for resentment. That's when there's room for
Mm-hmm.
the bitterness and all the other things.
Yeah.
As-
Resentment.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
yes, that right there is yeah. I'm that's a quote right there. Yes, our life should always be directed to purpose. Yeah,
Yeah. It should always, because if not, we get lost.
exactly.
We get lost in the midst of things that distract us when there's a whole world waiting on what you have. There's a whole, you know, generation of people who need what is inside of you. Yet we become distracted with what's not right about our spouse or what we think needs to change with them. The whole time God is like, but I called you though. I
Right,
also called you though.
right.
I called you. Let's focus on that.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
focus on your healing. Let's focus on how you feel about that last move. Let's focus on what your future looks like.
Yeah.
And I have been there, and let me tell you, I have done that. And every time, and I have been there, every time I wouldn't say I've become hopeless, but every time I've gotten to those places of disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
one of the only things that saves me is my businesses, it's my purpose. It's the books that I need to write. It's the things that God has called me to create specifically for families and for young people.
Yeah.
That fuels my fire and it refocuses me to realize that wherever you are in your life is just a moment. It's
Yes.
just a chapter in your book.
Yes.
Keep
Yes.
turning the pages and you will find that God has. And listen, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many years you've been married or if you're not married. This is only a chapter in the book of your life. And
Yes.
God has so much more written that he wants you to read and he wants to write with you.
Oh,
He
good.
wants to write it with you. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. Yes. Like
That's beautiful.
let me grab my pen and get
That
started.
was good to me. Whew.
Right? It
Yes.
was good to me. Oh my
Listen.
God. We can't even add anything. We can't even add anything to that. That was, listen, and I'll give you the floor. Anything that you want to wrap this session with that you're like, hey, if you don't take away anything else from our conversation today, here's what I want you to walk away with.
Yeah, if you don't take anything else away, I just want you to realize how valuable you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Regardless of how you may be being treated, regardless of how you may not feel seen, regardless of what it used to be and it's not anymore, regardless of how you may even feel about yourself right now. I've had to take so much time to work on myself personally. I had to get my body back in shape because it was affecting my self-esteem. I had to figure out how I want to present myself. What clothes do I want to wear? How do I want to wear my hair? What matters to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not like what someone else tells you should look like, or you compare yourself to other people because they look like this, or they sound like this, or they're doing this. No, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
What I want you to take away with is the value that is within you, because it is unique to you. And you know what makes you feel whole and you feel confident. Do that. Just do that.
Yeah.
And that is half the battle. When you are a whole person, a whole wife, you make your marriage better because you bring your full self to the situation.
Yeah.
And though he may not be doing the same thing right now, that's neither here nor there. You be the example and you get your body right.
Yeah.
You eat healthy. You take care of your spiritual life. You pull his hand and say, let's pray today.
Mm-hmm.
You be the example.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you will see so much change happen around you. Because you will now be walking fully into who God has created you to be, continuing to become, his vessel to pour out all that value that is within you. So stop waiting on somebody else to do it, boo. They're
Hey,
not going to do it.
hey,
It's
man.
on you. It's
Yes,
on you.
yes, that is so good. Oh my God. And with that, oh my God, I just want to say, Dr. Ebony Bell, my girl, thank you so much for being here
You're
today.
welcome. You're
Listen,
welcome. This
guys,
was good to me. It
this was
was great
good.
reminders for myself. Listen.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is so, so good. As you are listening, listen, all of her information is going to be in the show notes. Please reach out. Get her dolls, get her books. They're available on Amazon, right?
Yes.
So yeah, follow her social media, her organization, How She Does It Network, literally how she does it.
Yes.
She tells you all
Literally.
about how to do it, you know.
Literally.
And of course, for those of you in the DC area, of course, go spend a Sunday with them at their church. All that information will be again in the show notes. So again,
Awesome.
thank you so very much for joining me on another episode of the State of Our Union and the Fight to Keep It. See you next time.
Bye.